It's about to go down with Marc and Cathey, a live coaching show about dropping ideas. Marc and Cathey coach and have conversations with brilliant idea creators who are reimagining the world through the expression of their words, thoughts, and actions.
Hey, everybody. I am Cathey Armillas. Welcome to It's About to Go Down.
And I am Marc Williams, and today we are bringing you the love. We are joined today by Traci Rossi, and Traci is the executive director of the original, the first, the one that started it all. The Friends of the Children, a mentoring program and organization for young children. There are 36 chapters, including one here in New York. Yes, Cathey, I know. It all started in Portland.
It all started in Portland. Let's go. Let's go, Portland.
But you know, I got love for Portland, just like Cathey has got love for New York. And the reason why we're talking about love is because Traci is here with us today to talk about this big idea about big love. So Traci, welcome to It's About to Go Down. It's awesome to have you here. Tell us, Traci, why does the world need big love? Tell us about this idea and what you want to do with it.
Okay, so hi, everybody. Hi, Cathey, Marc. So especially right now, it's the holiday season, and this has been on my mind a lot, but big love is something I think a lot about. And what it is to me is when we talk a lot about love in our society, people seem to prioritize, romanticize romantic love, which is beautiful, wonderful. Love romantic love, but we don't always talk about the other opportunities for love in our lives. We don't talk about sibling love. Some of the most beautiful relationships that I've seen have been between siblings. We don't always talk about the people that we've made our family, our family, as some people will say, and the beauty that comes from those folks. And I think, thinking about the time of year, I think it's fraught because of this idea of what people think love should be versus what I really think it is. And people feel like they may feel lost because while it's lovely to have strong family relationships, I think all of us know that that's not something we can always have, but we can adopt our family. And so instead of having this ideal and the beautiful holiday movies, which I love as well, but you know what? Usually life doesn't look a lot like the movies. So I just want to promote this other concept and other idea because I think that it really is what helps to provide balance in our lives. And I really think everything ultimately is about love.
Oh. Marc and I are like, we're in 100%. We're in. This is it. We're all going to be everything that we're all going to say today. I can feel it is all like mutual admiration club for love. I love this idea, Traci, so much that I want to ask you a question really quick.
Yeah.
I love when you propose this idea of big love, and this is such a good concept because it's a concept that moves beyond family. It's just like big love everywhere. The question is, do you want to talk about this somewhere? Is it something that you already talk about? Tell me a little bit more about how you actually talk about big love, and do you want to do it in like a bigger way?
Well,
it's on the big.
It's something I've been noodling on. A few years ago, when I was in another role, the Center for Women's Leadership, I was working with a lot of college students, women who are in college. And there was a woman who said that she would have a friend come visit for the weekend. And so she'd arrive on a Friday, and they would gonna go to dinner, and they were good friends. They would go to dinner, start to scratch the surface. Saturday, they would hang out. Saturday night, they'd go to a party. Sunday, they wake up, have brunch. And they just started to scratch the surface of what's interesting and what's important. And so she called that big talk. She goes, I just want to have big talk. I don't want to waste Friday and Saturday to get to Sunday. So that was kind of, okay, big talk. We all want big talk. I don't like small talk. I can do it very well, but I don't like it. So I was thinking about big talk for a long time. And then I think when we got to the pandemic and we were all so isolated, I really started to value and think about the importance of connection. big connection. So I took my leap from big talk to big connection. And then we came out of the nightmare and realized that really, again, there's nothing more important than this idea of love. And so went from big talk, big connection to big love. So it's a scaffolding, I think, of what's important and priorities. And the work that I do, mentoring is just a secret. It's a secret code for love. And providing that opportunity to be in relationship with people. My organization happens to do it from kindergarten through 12th grade. So you really get to know the youth. And I love that. So I do in many ways think we're scaling love. So it is something that's building in my mind. And right before the pandemic, I was asked to do a regional TED Talk, Cathey. And I was thinking about it. And she said, well, think about the talk of your life. And I started thinking about it, and I spent a couple of weeks, and I said, I don't have it in me yet. And I love my work. I've been working in nonprofits for 30 years, and I do that, but it wasn't just in my bones. I didn't have that topic at my fingertips. But I feel like as I noodle and think and live life, and see the ups and downs and rewards and pain around relationships, that the big love idea is something that I'm living. I'm not just talking about it, but I'm feeling it and breathing it. So I do feel like it's something that I want to continue to think about.
Mm-hmm.
We're probably going to say I love that a lot. So just get used to it.
Okay.
Can I ask you, Traci, and thank you for the timeline. This concept of going from big talk to big connections to big love really resonates with me. I'm wondering, you shared a story about two other people. When was the first time that you can remember when you experienced big love? And I'm asking that question because Cathey and I always talk about that story that introduces the talk and the idea. So I'm curious, what was the first memorable time you experienced big love?
The one that I remember, and maybe it's because he was so tall, because I'm very close to my mom as well, but was my dad, who's passed away. He passed away at 42, but he was 6'6". And so I remember being a toddler and literally part of this big love concept. There's really, for me, embodiment is really important. And he used to ground his palms and I would put my hands in them and he would lift me up. And there was and then we would be like this, and I remember that. I felt our connection and I felt his foundational support in that physical movement. And that was just pure love. And he lived that. I mean, as I got older, no matter what, I remember I had gotten my first car accident. First and only out of two. It's not like I get in car accidents all the time.
First of many. Yeah.
So, not every day. But I was terrified and I didn't know what to do. And I called my dad and I was like, I just got into an accident. I was very upset. And he used to call me Meat because when I was a baby, I was very chubby. And so he said, Meat, that's why they call it an accident, because things go wrong. And they have a word for what you're experiencing. This isn't even new. Like, this is what people do. And it was just such a reaction from love. So there was always that foundational support. And thank you for even asking that question, Mark, because I had never really thought about that. But that's the first time I really felt in my body and my bones being loved unconditionally.
Wow. I got all kinds of things going through my head. Cathey, go ahead.
No, I saw your reaction too, Mark. I got chills. Traci, I'm glad he asked you as well.
Yes.
Because when I'm thinking about you, if I'm envisioning you and giving this talk or talking about it, that's your story. When you told the story of your friend, I go, oh, that's cool how you made the connection. But this one's the one that's personal to you.
Yeah.
Like, ooh. I wondered too, in my brain, I started connecting the story to what you said at the beginning, which big love isn't just romantic love. It's not sibling love. It could be family. It could be other things. And I could see you telling this story, and at the end, it's like, to me, big love is whatever, anything that could match or be in that same space as big love. And I don't care who it's coming from.
Yes,
Like,
exactly.
and
Yes.
that one particularly came from your dad, but like that feeling that you felt when you called your dad, or what the times when he picked you up,
Yeah.
that's the feeling. You could explain that as the feeling of big love. Ooh, I love that. Great question, Mark.
It's
I
such a
love how
good
you just went right
question.
to the story. You're like, let's get right to why.
Yeah, good.
You know, we love our stories.
Oh, we do. We do. Well, what I love about it the most, Mark, is that you're getting to the heart of why it was important to her. The concept's cool. People can immediately go, "Oh, that's a cool concept." But why is it good for Traci? Like, where did it come about? So I love that.
And what I like about it too, and this becomes the science behind storytelling is I automatically started thinking, when was my first experience with big love?
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
definitely
Mm-hmm.
yeah, where did the first big love
Yes.
come from? Or where, I started thinking too, like, who am I big love for?
Yeah. Yes.
Right? So if you
Yes.
want big love, you also have to be big love for other people,
Yep.
which
And
is,
yeah.
oh, sorry, Traci, I was going to say it ties to what you do.
Yeah, it does. And also I'm just delighting in being an aunt. So I'm Tia. And it's interesting that you guys are connecting lots of dots because I have several nieces and nephews, but my oldest is 6. And so I made a commitment to myself, and to him, but he doesn't know it, to pick him up every Thursday from school at 3 o'clock, which is ridiculous with my job. But everyone knows, like, there's that block of time. There's an hour and a half on Thursdays, and it says Harrison. And unless something is crumbling or on fire, we save that time for Traci. And I go and I pick him up, and we just literally have time. Sometimes we do basketball. Sometimes I just literally take him home. But I have thought and said, I can't maintain this. But I go back and I'm like, I have to. And I keep going back and I don't really know why. And now I know why, because it's big love. And I want him to have that memory that I just shared with you in some way, shape, or form when he's my age about, you know what, there were people who showed up for me no matter what. He doesn't know. He doesn't know now. Tia just comes, whatever.
Right, right, right. You
But
don't
one
connect the
day.
dots till later, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, Mark, somehow we ripped 2 good stories out of her that we're like, oh my gosh. Wow. The reason I asked that though, Mark, because I was thinking, if this were the talk of your life, Traci, if this were the TED Talk, which is much needed, at the end, you're going to have to be able to tell people how they could show up in big love. And what I heard in that story was big love is the consistency of small things. Big love is showing up. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Hit the wall, Mark. Hit the wall.
Yes. Yes.
You did it again.
Well, it's just a concept I thought because of what she was saying. There's these Harrison Thursdays, and you're right. So I'm going to share a really quick story, and then I think it should be a game, Mark. I want to hear it because Traci just shared 2 really good stories, and so the game is what area have you experienced big love in either direction? And I'll share one with you because you inspired me, Traci. My brother just moved to San Diego, but he was living in the Portland area, and my 2 nieces and my nephew, he has 3 kids. We would come over every Sunday, pretty much every Sunday, unless something was majorly blowing up, or every Sunday.
Yes.
And I started, and it happen by accident. This is why I'm telling it, because big love can happen by accident too.
Yes.
Nathan used to wear a shirt, and every Sunday I would come over and I go, "Oh, you're wearing your Sunday shirt." And it became a thing. And it became like a really big thing that he had a Sunday shirt, and he wore it until he was ripping out of the seams. And they said, "It's okay, Nathan, you can have another Sunday shirt."
Right.
And so now he has another Sunday. And so I just talked to my brother the other day, and I said, "Tell Nathan I'm coming to San Diego and he needs to wear his Sunday shirt." Right. And so it just became, the little thing became such a big thing, but it for him later on in life, it'll probably be a tie back to the family time that we spent on Sundays.
Yes, it's a symbol of that love. Yes, absolutely. I love that.
Yeah. So, and Traci, I would say that's your Sunday shirt right there, like your heart shirt.
Yeah.
Big love. Mark. All right, Mark, what's your big love story?
All right. So I have to put this in three parts because as a parent, I cannot pick one over the other.
Right.
Oh, okay. No, I love it. I love it.
I love it.
All right. My oldest son, Jordan, I'll just work in that age order. You know, he's playing basketball at his high school right now. And, you know, he just got to the varsity team. So, you know, the kids who are already on the team are getting much more play time.
Yes.
And sometimes he doesn't get off the bench, right? Just coach has this 6-player rotation kind of thing going on. And, you know, for him, it's like, oh, well, you know, Dad, if you can't make the game. And I remember saying to him, I go, it doesn't matter if you don't play the whole season. Like, I'm going to be here at every single game.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
That's big love, no matter what.
That's big love. No, yes.
Right? My daughter, Sydney, and I'm going to say she gave this big love to me. Ever since she was the littlest of the little, anytime I had to park the car, everybody would get out. My wife, my 2 sons would get out. They go into the house. But she always sat in that back seat. And listen, in New York City, it could take you a while to find
Squeeze into that little spot.
She's committed to her big love.
But she would hang with Dad. You know, she would hang with Dad until we found that spot. And no matter how far we had to walk home from the parking spot, she was always there. So that's a little mutual big love. And then the third example is every morning, my son Dylan and I, we leave the house at the same time. I'm going to work, he's going to school. And we walk outside of our building and we wave. And then we walk. And then we stop. And then we wave. And then we walk. And then we stop. And we wave. And we keep doing that until at least I get to my corner before he gets to his corner. And it always starts with this. And then, of course, the last one is like one of those big waves to each other as far back as we go. And yes, every once in a while, we'll see somebody like, oh, do you do that every day? And it's like, yeah, that's our memory. So when he's my age, I hope that he always remembers. We always say.
I love that. I love that.
Oh, thank you for inspiring these thoughts, Traci.
Yeah.
Big love is inspiring.
It is. I was thinking we could just shut this episode right down right now. Boom, mic drop. We showed like, no, but seriously. No, go ahead, Mark. Yeah.
You know, I would love to, but we can't.
No.
And we can't because I think we're all very well aware that big love is so beautiful and yet it's so hard.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, what's the line from the song? What the world needs now is love, sweet love. Well, what the world needs now is love, big love. Right. Because it's so hard for so many people to love. So Traci, I would love to hear you share with us, because I think this would be very powerful for a talk. What makes big love so hard?
Such a good question. I think a lot about this, like, why is it so hard? And I think that we have a society that is designed to be chaotic. Because imbalance is really good for capitalism. Despair is really profitable, sadly. And I think so many of going back to the holiday movies, so many of the images and so many of the talking points and the messaging that we get makes big love look simple, perfect, tidy. And so I think that we're seeking that. We're not even looking for the right thing because we believe in this. And we shouldn't feel bad about believing in it because people are spending billions of dollars to make us think this way. And so I think when you're looking for the wrong thing, it's hard to find big love.
Mm, mm,
Really hard to find it.
mm. God. Yeah, Mark, I see your face. I see you. What, wow, what a line. I mean, what a line to be talking about in this talk that we're starting to create for Traci right here, right now. Right. I love that, Traci. You know, one thing one concept I want to throw your way that I'm thinking, if we could toy around with it for a second.
Yeah.
I, I'm glad you asked the question, Mark. Why is it so hard? And then Traci's answer, I loved because it made me think of all the things that are making what's opposing it. Because when we talked about it, it was super simple. When we talked about it, it was like all little things.
Yes.
I
Yes.
even wrote it, right? It was all simple.
It's free.
It's free, it's simple. And I even wrote down in another way. I know I said it a different way, but I even like said big love shows up in little ways. I think that we try to overcomplicate things. Like the world, you're right, is pushing us to overcomplicate things. What if, what if one of the ways that you could teach people big love, it's two part. Maybe it's the little things, but also it's in consistency. Mark, in some of your stories, well, Traci, yours as well with Harrison, right? Is like there's this consistency, a consistency thread. You're going to show up at Jordan's
Yeah.
games. You know, Sydney's going to sit in the car every time you're going to park. You know, you're all of the ways that we're showing up, you know, the way that we're showing up in a consistent way. Yeah, I don't know. I was just thinking about that consistency because it's just it's kind of doing something over and over, but that doesn't have to be the only formula. I just was thinking about some of the formulas.
Yeah, that's interesting because the reason that our program, in kind of connecting professional and personally, the reason our program is 12 and a half years is that our founder was really interested in this because he would have been one of the kids in our program. He shares that. He had a very difficult childhood. And so he had a business life. And then after he did well with his business, he wanted to start a mentoring organization. But before he started, he asked several researchers, what is it about mentoring that actually works? What's the added value? And all the researchers said, Cathey, consistency. So staying for those 12 and a half years. Because that idea of letting kids down or letting people down is really hard to recover from, especially in the early years. So I think you're absolutely right. I think there is something to consistency as a part of it, because I also think that as a parent, we can beat ourselves up because we do the best that we can, but we're not always consistent. We're growing, we're evolving, we're changing. And so I think that, I mean, you think about celebrations like Christmas. That's why we go crazy trying to make this month festive and different every single year. So we have rituals and you have things that you can count on. But in life, unfortunately, things change. And so I think a part of it is consistency, but also building the ability within a family or within a relationship to have a breakdown, because that's part of life, and then recovering from the breakdown. What I found in problematic relationships is there's a lack of communication. So things get to a point of problem or conflict. And if there is not an ability to work through that, then the relationship is at risk. And I think there are a variety of different skill sets that people have. And I don't know what it is. I just don't think we are very practiced as a culture in working through really hard things. We give up. We see lots of drama in the media. Oh, they're right, they're wrong. You know, everyone has the same talking points around an issue. They're not even unique or original. We all say the same things. Like there's something that we came up with it, but it's been fed to us, but it's usually black and white. But to transcend difficulty and big love is to be able to move through that difficult time and have grace and some resilience and the ability to forgive and get back to that place of consistency. But there is usually a breakdown. That's life. And how we cope and deal with that breakdown, I think, is a part of big love.
I love that.
I love that because earlier you mentioned that one of the things we do as a society is we can oversimplify what love is. And so we are chasing this simplified, romanticized version of love as if there are no breakdowns, no conflicts. And that's not true. But we don't talk about that.
We don't talk about it.
Wow. I think that's really helpful to then to bring up. And I think that's another great opportunity within the talk to then highlight some of those examples, right? Because we easily came up with the examples of big love, big free love, consistent love all the time. Yes. But what about those breakdown moments? What are some of those examples? How do you get people to think about those examples and how to deal with them?
Yeah, and even confront them.
Mm-hmm. Marc, you used a word right now that I really like, because they bring forth what Traci's talking about is really opportunity, though. You just used the word opportunity, and I really like that. Maybe part of this talk, Traci, is, maybe there's different parts of big love. And one of the big parts of big love is that there's opportunities for big love. If there's a breakdown in a relationship, guess what? That, how in customer service, they always say, oh, when a customer complains, that's an opportunity to make a happy customer or something like that. But what if we thought about it in this space? If communication does break down, if something does go awry, if something, isn't, and you're going to have seasons. I'm thinking about the season, Marc, how long are you going to have this season with Dylan where you're walking apart from each other? At some point, it'll be a different school, and maybe that, so it's not, consistency doesn't mean forever. Consistency just means that you've built a reputation around it. Because you talked about reputation before, Marc, and so I wanted to bring that back in, because I thought, like, in Dylan's mind, you have this reputation of doing that. In Sydney's mind, or in your mind, Sydney has a reputation for sitting in the car with you, right? For Jordan, you have a reputation for showing up at his game, whether or not he's playing. So that's the consistency. It doesn't mean the consistency has to equal the number of times, right?
Yeah.
That's another weird thing that we put on the word consistency. When we hear consistency, we almost always just equate it to, like it has to be a certain number of times. Now, I know with Friends of the Children, I personally, when I had heard Duncan give his TEDx Portland talk years ago, that was one thing that I was like, wow, their program's a little.
The programs. All right. We're going to pause right here.
But in their program, it's in the program with Friends of the Children, it's the 12 and a half years, the consistency of that. Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing I'm thinking about, I wrote it down because there's consistency, because the part where it gets hard is I'm a little bit of, I don't know, the part where it gets hard, I call them cracks, right? Because you're moving along, and that is an aspect of big love. I'm also very interested and intrigued by the cracks, because I feel like in the cracks, that is where things start to get interesting. That's where you start to see who that person is. That is kind of going down another path. And it's hard and messy. And not that I like conflict, but it's also when you start to see a little bit more about who that person is. And that's where trust is built. It's where relationships get deeper. I like the cracks. I think if people didn't feel so ashamed of their cracks, because I think we can build shame around people who appear to be different. I mean, that's the whole underpinning of racism and ableism, all the isms. And if people felt more comfortable sharing the cracks, I think it would normalize difference, because difference is it. That's the essence of who we are. That's the good part.
I'm intrigued by the cracks as well. I'm intrigued by it because I often do these community building workshops. And during one workshop, we talk about how you can't have community without conflict.
Yeah. Yeah.
And while that is true, what's even more true is that you cannot have community without resolution.
Yeah.
Right. And so the key is figuring out, how do you resolve as a community, or how do you resolve as two people in love? And those cracks are that's the real part, right? It's like, yeah, I can be really dedicated to something when things are good. But what happens with that first argument, that first letdown, the first time you don't show up? Listen, I remember dating somebody a long time ago. And I remember, like, there was one time, like, I used to walk to the train station, and there was this one time, I don't remember why, but I didn't walk all the way to the train station. And I remember she brought it up. And it was an interesting point because that was one of those cracks. And then it was like, how do you deal with it? Like, what happens, to your point, Cathey? It's not necessarily about number of days, but there comes a point where the consistency stops or cracks.
Yeah.
What do you do then? Because I think that then becomes the biggest power of your message. How do we love in a big way when the cracks happen?
Yeah. And I think cracks are probably a trigger. This is what I'm learning. This is for me. So to me, that most annoying crack, the reason it's annoying, because there's something in me that it's tickling. There's an experience, it's impacting me in a certain way because of my stuff, not because of that person's stuff. So to the extent that I'm evolving and growing and becoming more self-aware of that, the better off I am. And sometimes I'm not there. I don't even know it's a trigger. That's happened in past relationships. I didn't even know it was a trigger, but later I thought about it. I was like, oh, that was about something completely different. So I think maybe analyzing what the cracks really are and why they are so troublesome, if they're troublesome.
That can be tough.
I love looking at both the bright side of big love and and kind of I don't want to just call it the dark side, but the bright side and the not so shiny side or whatever. The opportunity side. But maybe that is really the thing. Like, in my mind, my brain always tries to conceptualize things. Marc already knows this about me. My brain tries to make a concept out of stuff, because that's the training I have with working with people on talks, is like, how do you make this into a concept where it's big and it's abstract and it can be a lot of things, but you really make it easy for people to not only to talk about what you're talking about, Traci, but for them to also, like, put their own spin on it. So it's not like you make it concrete where it can only be this. But in my mind, I'm seeing, I don't know if you all think about this, but I'm seeing it in two different ways. I'm seeing it as like a quick big love, and then more of a deeper big love. Like a quick big love, you can big love quickly and easily. It's just showing up it's showing up in a way that's big love. It comes, there's many different ways we could explain big love. Just showing up for somebody, doing something for somebody, going to a neighbor's house and being like, hey, I'm going to just sweep, I'm going to take care of all your leaves, or whatever. You can show up in so many different ways. And then there's this other one where it's a more longevity type of big love, where there is the consistency of time, not just the consistency of character, maybe. Like, I would ask each one of us, would people around us call us big love people? Like, that's the reputation. Do we have the reputation for being big love? And it's probably because you're doing all these little things. But then there's that other one where it's more of longevity, and the big love is to work through the cracks, and the cracks are the things that could potentially break it down, or it could potentially make it stronger. I don't know. That's where my brain went.
Yeah.
Because it's really multifaceted. That's how I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, it is. And their decision points about where we want to be. I hear you. I feel like one of them is seeing. I'm really seeing someone, I think, is a big piece of big love, like just seeing someone. And then perhaps the deeper aspect of it is being with someone, right? You can do that one time consistency. You see them, you appreciate them. And then there is a whole nother level. Okay, I see you and I'm with you.
That is brilliant. That's such a brilliant way to describe the two things I was talking about. I do. I love that. Oh, I love that a lot. Because you have the big love of seeing somebody and then the big love of being with somebody. Marc, you were seeing, I'm going to break yours down for a second. You were seeing somebody the day that you took the picture of the family and the Empire State Building, you laid on the ground and did the thing, right? So that was big love. With your kids, this is like you're being with them. You're going to Jordan's game. You've called me several times or texted me and said, "Oh God, I just found out that Jordan's having a game that day." And we're like, I already know. Done. It's not happening, right? Like just being. Oh, I love that. Traci, I love that. So good.
You know, let's build on that for a second, because whether it's me saying it or whether it's you saying it, Cathey, I got something, right? I got to do something with the family. Oh, I forgot this. And the fact that, and I'll speak from how I've received your big love. When you say, listen, that's it, drop it. Marc, it's late. Spend time with the family, right? Like you doing that means so much. Right? And that's big love. And that goes back to what Traci was saying earlier. Like, it's not just between siblings and spouses and children and parents.
Yes. It's not, people don't ever recognize it. Yeah. That is love. What you described, I've got your back.
You know? And I think we need to see more of that. And Traci, to your point, I think what becomes hard about that is, see, when we just see people temporarily, right? You know, you see a stranger, like there's that connection that's not quite built through the consistency.
Right.
So maybe we don't have that fortress, that fortitude, what have you, that history. And so when the cracks do happen in society, and cracks happen every day, you looked at me the wrong way on the subway, you bumped into me on the street, right? And then all of a sudden there's this crack and we don't know how to get over it. I think that's where we need help. I think that's where we need a lot of help.
We need a lot of help. You know, I have this story. It's really fun. So I was on this committee, a volunteer committee, and there was an older white woman who was on the committee with me. We met maybe 4 or 5 times over the course of 4 or 5 months, but I was very interested in her for some reason. She was intriguing to me. And so it's at this club in Portland, Mac Club, Cathey. So people have like a stereotype about the Mac Club. Yeah, right. That's the look, Marc. That's the look. Right?
Yeah. You already know, and you don't even know what it is.
And so we're walking out of one of these committee meetings, and we had never really been friendly, but like I said, there was something about her. She kind of caught my eye. So we're walking out, and despite the fact that I have a pen right now, I don't usually have pens with me because I usually have electronics technology. So we're walking out side by side. She goes, "Traci, do you have a pen?" And I didn't. I was like, "No." And she kind of stood and looked at me like, "Will you get me a pen?" And so I had a moment where I had to decide who I wanted to be and how I wanted to receive this. Was I going to be offended? Was there expectation that I was going to go fetch her a pen? Or was she just an older woman who needed a little help? Like there's so many things that went through my mind. So I said, "I can find you a pen." So I went around, I stopped what I needed to do. I was late to go to get to another meeting, and I found her a pen. And she was, "Will you come sit with me for a moment?" Okay, now we're really taking this far. So we went and we sat in the lobby. And so she pulls out her purse, and she's very graceful. She pulls out her purse and she pulls out her checkbook and she starts writing a check. She goes, "I would like to make a donation to your organization. And I've been watching you in these committees, and I'm impressed by your leadership."
Wow. Oh my God, I just got chills again.
And so I was like, wow. But then, since then, this was like 7 months ago. Sometimes I think life brings you together. We run into each other a few times. We've gone out to lunch, and she's becoming a friend. And I just think about what if, because at that first impression, I thought I saw her because of context. And there's a generational gap. I thought I saw her, and I could have reacted in a different way, and I never would have made a friend out of this woman. So it's also interesting, like the lens, the filters that we can use to actually see people. Are we always right?
That was a big love moment. Like that was.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. As the sparks keep flying, like we just keep going deeper and deeper. It was a big moment. It gets better and better.
That also was a practice of big love. I think you can talk about that, Traci.
Oh, the practice. I love
practice
that.
of big that. Yeah. Well, when you were telling the story, I wrote it down. I wrote the practice of big love. I feel like you practiced it because in that moment you decided you could have easily went, ooh, that's really, it's like, that sounds offensive. Are you trying to tell me to go fetch a pen? Or you just practice big love and go, hey, you know what? I'm not responsible for if this person has bad intentions. I'm not responsible for that. Big love doesn't practice that way.
Right.
Big love practices, and I even see you personifying big love in this talk. Big love practices in a way that says, I will take the best intentions at heart. And if you have bad intentions, that's kind of on you.
Yeah.
But big love doesn't operate that way or something. I don't know. That's how I saw it when you were telling the story.
Oh, this is crazy. This is so full circle because when I was in college, in Pittsburgh, I was 18, and there's a lot of different immigrant communities in Pittsburgh. And I was walking down the street, this little cobblestone street, and this older, very like traditional woman, she's wearing all black, and she had these big, like clog type shoes with shoelaces. And I'm walking down the street toward her, and she looked at me, and there's like at the time there was low-key racism in Pittsburgh with all these different communities not necessarily coming together. And she looked at me, and she was very flat. Her affect was very flat. She goes, will you tie my shoe? I just connected this dot, and I looked at her, and I was like, said to myself the same thing, like, what do I do? And I said, I'm going to tie this woman's shoe. It was untied. And she seemed like, I don't know if she could bend over and tie her shoe. So I got down and I tied her shoe, stood straight up. I don't know if she said thank you or not. I don't remember. And I kept walking. And I had to decide that I was going to feel good about that practice of big love. And I did not have the language until this moment.
Oh my gosh. I had tears in my eyes right now, Marc. Wow. The tears in my eyes are from the heart that you have, Traci. Like nothing to do with anybody outside of just your moments of big love, your practice, and how I love that in like, because both of these situations were kind of a knee jerk, right? You had a moment where you had a split second to make a decision, and your heart chose big love, not even knowing the words to it, or not even knowing.
I did not know the words.
Yeah, you just did. Wow, super powerful.
I'm so inspired by that story, Traci, because I don't know how many people you've told that story to, but I can only imagine that. And listen, I can reflect back now, and even I made a face when you said, she said,
I know.
Who's this woman Which means there are so many people who think that's insane. Your big love moment to many people would be insane.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yet, walking away, saying something, cursing somebody out, for many people, that would not be insane.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And you know, Cathey, you called it a knee-jerk moment. And yes, it was. And yet, the way you told the story, Traci, there's almost like there's this dialogue going on in your head. And it's like, I don't mean to make a matrix, but it's almost like it's the pill, it's the blue pill, right? It's like Either I curse this lady out or I tie her shoes.
That was it. That was the dialogue. That was actually the conversation.
And you know what's beautiful about it? And I love the two stories. The first story doesn't end with a donation to your organization. You don't even know what happened to that. You don't even really know why that lady asked you to tie her shoe.
I don't.
True.
I don't. Because she didn't, it wasn't thank you. It was just very matter of fact.
Yeah. You know what? Okay. I'm going to play the story out a little bit further. Okay. Because I do love that. I do love that you pointed that out, Mark, that we don't know the ending of the story. The other one's clear. Give me a pen. Guess what? I just got a donation check. What? Okay. Instant karma for your big love. The second one, what if she went home and what if she went home as a lady that doesn't have a family anymore? What if she went home and what if one of the things she was thankful for is that a stranger that she felt safe with, by the way, Traci, she might have saw you as a woman and just felt safe. She's walking down the street by herself. And what if she felt safe to ask you and she's, she doesn't have a very good social face, the way she talks. We could call it RBF. We could call it whatever. It could look like a lot.
Oh, no.
Keeping track of the time, Tracy. Last time I said pause, she came right back.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. What if it looked like, I know it's like, what if what it looked like for her was a big deal and you don't understand how big that was for her.
Right. Yeah. The other side of the story.
Yeah. You don't know the other side of the story. And somehow it's not our business to know the other side of the story. If you're practicing big love, you practice it in those situations, you practice it anyway, and you don't worry about what's on the other side of the street. You don't worry about what people's intentions were. I know I've told you this story, Mark, but Lou, our friend Lou Raja, he's
I know Lou, yeah.
So wise, right? A long time ago. I mean, I think when we were first friends, I mean, this must have been over 10 years ago. I opened a door for somebody and I was like, "You're welcome." They didn't say thank you. And then he immediately, once we got in, he immediately like scolded me. He goes, "Can I ask you a question, Cathey?" And I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Did you open the door for them or for you?" And I go, "For them." And he goes, "No, if you did it for them, you wouldn't care about the thank you. But you did it for you. You did it for you. You need the thank you. That was actually for you. So switch it up. Next time you open the door for somebody, if it's for them, shut your mouth." Like, pretty much.
Wow. Yeah.
So that's the way you can practice big love.
That I love that story, Cathey, and I have heard you tell it before. And it's like, I think there's a richness in what you just said. One of the things that makes big love so hard is that quite often we're not expressing big love for the other person. We're expressing big love for ourselves, right? I'm holding the door because I want to hear a thank you. I'm saying I love you because I want to hear I love you back.
Yeah. I'm going to hand you a pen.
Your shoes if you
I want a donation check. Right? If I hand you this pen, I better get a donation check. That's going to be every time somebody asks you for a pen, that's a
nice surprise.
It is a nice surprise. I love it too, Mark, because it's kind of a check. I could see that being a powerful part of your talk, and it could be even a concept if you were actually even teaching this. So sometimes we'll talk about like a big talk, like you're going to give a TED talk. And so you kind of give this idea, but I could also see you teaching this to people. I could see it in a workshop thing where you're like, okay, let's talk about the art of practicing big love. What does that look like?
Yeah.
How can we give big love when we're not adding, because big love doesn't have expectations. Big love doesn't worry about the other person and what their intent was. How do we give it? The big love that you're showing for Harrison right now is that that he doesn't know.
Yeah.
Not keeping track that it's every Thursday maybe, but it's going to, at some point it probably will hit, but big love doesn't matter because Big Love just shows up every Thursday.
And also, I think about this too, because there's something about racism embedded in here, and I'm just kind of playing with it. There was a diversity workshop that I attended like 3 years ago. For some reason, I attended the same one by the same facilitators like 5 times in different contexts. And so we just kept listening to the same material. The first time was very impactful. And by the 5th time, it was 5 times, the 5th time, I had a major aha moment, because when we look at racism and in these contexts, it was mostly white folks in the group, and they were mostly thinking, look how terrible it is for people of color. And they should not be treated this way. And they are not inferior. That was the lesson. They are not inferior. They were trying to get. And by the 5th time, I was like, I get it. To undo racism, it really isn't that you have to learn that people of color aren't inferior, which, by the way, we already know. It is that white folks have to understand they are not superior.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of goes back to this big love moment, because this is why none of the stuff works, because everyone's looking at the object of racism as something outside that we have to remove and we have to do better. They're not looking at it from an internal perspective, that there is something wrong with how I'm looking at myself.
Yeah, I love
and
that.
it's getting something out of it. You're getting something out of racism when you're objectifying people of color, like we're talking about. But if you have to look at it in terms of, oh, I didn't actually get this because I'm smarter, and I don't actually deserve this, is a whole different conversation. And embedded in that is, underneath all of that, the foundation is you have to love yourself and you have to love the people around you. That's the baseline. If we could do that, we will eradicate racism.
Without thinking about what you're going to get out of it. Right? It reminds me of what you said about Harrison earlier. There's a point where it's like, I got to get to work, right? Or I got to get to I have to do this. But for a moment, I'm not going to think about that. I'm somehow going to work around that, so that I could show up with my big love.
Yeah.
Right? And so many people don't work around because they're just trying to get out of.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, I also really love what you said, Traci, that you have to love yourself and you have to love the people around you, because the way that ties to big love. And, if big love had a formula, that's what it would be. I feel like with like racism, for instance, people are trying to crack the code of it, right? Trying to go, okay, what is that thing you're saying? What is that thing outside of me that I can do to crack that code? How do I crack it? How do I make it different? But the answer kind of lies in the big love. It's like, you have to love. If you did anything, there's no specific thing. How do you love yourself, and how do you love the people around you?
Yeah.
That's what big love is.
And Cathey, to your point, there's an opportunity here way beyond a TED Talk. I think of the many organizations. I mean, listen, you run a mentoring organization, right? So this is way beyond just a TED Talk. And then I think about all the organizations, whether they're serving children or whether they're serving adults. And I don't just think this is a customer service, show big love to your customers and clients. No. This is also showing big love with the person who sits across the room from you. Yeah. In this, you started this off talking about the pain of the pandemic and how it disconnected us. And there are still so many people working in silos.
Yeah. Yes.
Right. That need that big love. And listen, you brought up race. I mean, that's such a huge thing. And there's so much hate in the world, right? And there's so much, to your word earlier, there's so much chaos. And it's like, wow, we really We really need your message, Traci.
Wow, you guys are helping me Thank you. It's like we're collectively crafting this message, because I've just been thinking about this stuff for years. And there's so much pain right now. And it's so even funny. I mean, I even said it because I usually work in the office. I don't get to work at home very much, but I love when I am able to work at home. But really, people want to stay at home. They say they want to stay at home. I have employees who swear they want to stay at home, but I don't believe it. I feel like people want to be in relationship, and maybe the way we're doing it is not right, and that's not what they want to go back to. But we have become even more isolated in strange ways since the pandemic, I think by choice, when I think we're all yearning for community.
We are. Traci, can I add this? Because you just inspired this thought. Sometimes we're pitting love against hate. I got that image from Do the Right Thing. Check that reference, right?
Yes.
But I think what I'm hearing from you is it's less about love versus hate, and it's like love versus pain.
Yeah.
And because you said it, I said there's a lot of hate. You said there's a lot of pain. And to me, that's a different way of looking at it. And if you could speak more to that in your talk about the pain that is being caused rather than the hurt, the hate. I think hate is such a polarizing word that it takes us away from it. But pain sometimes creates empathy.
Yeah.
Well, and the opposite of love wouldn't be hate, because that still is a strong emotional feeling, but the pain is the effect of the negative. So I love that. No, it's amazing. I think that is a brilliant little tweak on that, Marc. I think that's really, really good. Wow. Well, what I will say is we could probably talk about this for 5 hours.
I know.
We should definitely have a part 2. Sometimes we do have a part 2. It would actually be fun, Traci, if there was some other time where you're like, oh, I kind of crafted this and got it to the next level. You have an open invitation to come back on and talk about Big Love Part 2 after you've put some thought into this, as you move closer to your big talk. But a lot of things have changed in my mind since we started talking. There's a lot of things circling. But Traci, I'm curious, like, this was your concept. You came onto this show with Big Love. And what I don't know, what do you think about since we've been talking the last hour? What's changed? What are you thinking?
It's so real, right? So I've been thinking about it and feeling it. And I love talking to you two about it, because I like the concept of it being a practice in many ways. Big Love being a practice and an aspiration, and to counteract the pain. I really never thought about the counteracting of the pain aspect of it. This has definitely broadened to me the whole idea. And I feel like it's just the three of us talking. I feel like it's something that unites people. We can all feel it. Like we all know what Big Love is. That's the wonderful thing about it.
Yep. I love that. Traci. Love it. Awesome. All right. Well, if people wanted to find out about you or Friends of the Children, I know, like where would you direct them?
You can find Traci Rossi, me on LinkedIn. You can always look there. Friends of the Children Portland. Just go to friendspdx.org if you want to learn more about our organization.
Love it. So we're going to be following you, Traci, on your Big Love journey. And to anybody watching, I hope that you decided today, after listening, that there is a practice of Big Love. And I hope that you choose to be part of it and use it in whatever way will work for you. Traci, thank you for being on our show. We love Big Love. And for anybody watching, if there's anybody out there that has an idea like Traci's that you're like, oh, Marc and Cathey got to talk about this idea. Let's go. Find us at it'sabouttogodownshow.com and let us know, even if it's your idea. To anybody watching, thank you for watching today, because it definitely went down. But tune in next time, because it will go down on the next episode of It's About to Go Down.
Thank you, Marc and Cathey. So grateful for the conversation. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Big love, Traci. Big love.
Thank you. Thank you.